All right, we are live, Facebook family, and I am here with Kayla Fertman. Um, you know, we had a great conversation about just traveling, and it was a really unique niche that I just wanted to bring her on so that she could share some of her experiences, especially just the way that the world has transformed with the pandemic and what we've experienced in 2020. Just wanted to give some really cool insights because Kayla has a really cool story in terms of traveling abroad, living abroad, working abroad, and just to give a little tidbit about who she is and what she does. Kayla is a travel coach and the owner of the Travel Movement. She helps remote working professionals break free, travel the world, and live the life that they love. She's originally from Denver, Colorado, but she's been traveling full time for the last 5 years and working remotely all over the globe. She's traveled solo, which is like, it's a big deal. Traveling solo extensively to 5 different continents. We got North America, South America, Africa, Asia, Europe. I think we're just missing Antarctica, but it's just an incredible adventure along the way. And, she believes that travel is the path to self-discovery, self-healing, the world healing. And her mission is to really help people transform their lives and the world through travel and just sharing her experiences. So thank you for joining us today. And I just wanted to introduce Kayla Fertman and let her share her awesome story about how she's got from a place in Colorado to where is she in the world? I think she's in Ecuador right now. So I'll leave it up to you. Kayla, take it from here, share your story and share your magic, just like how you shared with me on our earlier conversation leading up to this.
Well, thank you, Thomas, for the beautiful introduction. And hello to all the luminary coaches out there. I'm so glad that we're here in this community together and that Thomas has brought us here together. And that's so amazing of you to do, Thomas. And just thank you ahead of time. And so, a little bit about me. So, yeah, like Thomas said, my name is Kayla. And, I was on the path for what is like a typical American life, which I think does kind of trap us into a certain um, way sometimes. So basically, I was on the track to graduate high school and then graduate college and then get a job, and that job has to make a lot of money because I'm going to have an expensive life. And then after that, I really got to get married right away because everyone else is doing it. After that, I have to have kids. And we push ourselves to live in this lifestyle because we don't know anything different. you know people people, Europeans and other people from around the world, they travel a lot, but for some reason Americans, we have a certain fear, around traveling, and other people around the world also do have fears around traveling. And so I was on this track, I was on this track to go for this life that society has told me that I should have. And so, I graduated college and I was working for a business coach actually for my first like real world job. I was working for a business coach, and, I would sit in my computer and I would just stare out the window and I would be like, I know there's more. I know there's more out in this world. I know I have to go experience it. I don't know how. And I searched for all these different ways that I could do it. I looked into going in the Peace Corps. I looked into going in AmeriCorps. I looked into just getting a new job and moving to a new city in the US. And after thinking of all the ways that I could just go see something new, just have a new experience, then finally, I had talked to a friend who taught English in Thailand. And then I was like, wow, okay, I think that's going to be it. I think that's the one. So I got trained to be an English teacher and I moved all the way to Hong Kong. And then I started teaching English in a school in Hong Kong. But then shortly after that, I realized I could be doing that same exact job, but just do it remotely. So I used the skills I learned as an English teacher and I just found a remote job that fit those skills, and I took off. I packed a backpack full of stuff and I took off from Hong Kong and I started traveling all around Southeast Asia, by myself, and it was like the most incredible adventure of my life. I was so terrified. And, just taking that first plane ride by myself, knowing that for a long period of time I was going to be out by myself in the world, and didn't know when I was going to meet somebody or didn't know anything, and I just had to trust that the world was going to take care of me, and that's exactly what happened. So that's kind of how this journey all began.
Awesome. um, it could be a scary place, especially you do the planning, you take the training to do it, but as soon as you hit that plane, it's like you see it go off, and then you're like, holy F, like, what am I doing? Like, and then like for like the next, especially if you're going to Asia or Hong Kong, it's like, it's a 14 to 16-hour flight, and the whole time it's like, okay, let me try to catch a nap, but the thing is, like, what the heck am I going to do? What am I going to do over there? But the thing that really caught my attention, especially when we were having our conversation, was really breaking out of the mold, right? And it's a hard thing to do, especially when we've been raised, or a lot of us have been raised like, we have everything here that we need, right? But there's always an inkling to kind of be like a rebel in a way, right? Like a travel rebel or a revolutionary. But tell me how, like, I know you went through the daydreaming to really see the world and get outside of it. What else provoked you to kind of break that mold
Hmm.
and get
You
out of your
know,
shell?
That's a great question because I think that's one of the most important questions actually in this whole thing. Because I was so unsatisfied with where my life was at in Colorado and working in my first job. I couldn't imagine living more years of my life like that. And I couldn't imagine like 5 years from then, just like, relationships were broken. They weren't, well, some were really, really bad. It depends, all different spectrums of, romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships. Nothing was really full of love and life. And so relationships were broken. My relationship with myself was broken. I didn't love myself. And I was just so not willing to live my life the way it had been for more years. I was like, I have to change something, and thank God I did. I look at my friends and I just think, go travel, go explore, go do something because, so when we're in our, like when we're in our city where we live or where we came from, we have a very limited perspective about what exists in the world. So we just only get this one idea of what exists. And then that goes for everything. Like you only are going to meet, like if you're going dating, you're only going to meet people in your bubble. You're not going to meet anybody outside your bubble until you go out of your bubble. That goes for, media. Talk about the news and how much it just trashes our mind and puts ideas in our mind that might not even be true or may be a very small portion of the truth. I mean, that was a huge thing when I studied abroad in Rwanda in Africa. And, the biggest thing, I was like, I never imagined it to be this way. My whole life I've been told Africa is one way. Like I thought the plane was gonna like land down on this like rickety runway, and like we landed in like a gorgeous airport. Like I was mind blown about what my expectations of Rwanda and Africa had been based on the media and the news. And then breaking that and being like, wow, this place is beautiful and these people are amazing and their culture is so rich. And this is what I want to share it with other people and allow them to experience that too and see what we've been told in our little bubble. There's so much beyond that. But if we never break out of that, then we will never, number one, be able to really like share what we have with the world fully because we don't even know it exists in the world. You know what I mean?
Like 100%. Like, we always have this picture of what a place kind of looks like or feels like, right? And a lot of the times we're getting told by people that have never been there, or we're getting told by uh, I know it's like probably really like shaggy and rankety, or it could be beautiful. And it's like, well, how do you know? And they're like, well, I heard from a friend, or I heard from like, the media, or I read about it online, or uh, there was a story I read about it while I was in school or something like that. But to experience it firsthand is just totally different. And just want to know, like, what are some of the strategies? I guess like it could be scary to travel. Like it could be overwhelming. It could be there's so many unknown factors. Like what were some of your strategies to, I guess, acknowledge it and just like own it so that you actually do take the action with certainty?
Yeah, good question. Because that's really what it is. If you want to travel, you can. Like most other things, the only thing stopping us is fear, right? Especially if you're thinking traveling solo. That's a whole nother level of fear that you have to push through. But I've learned two main things. Number one, when I travel, I have to be open minded. I have to just have an open mind to whatever comes my way. It reminds me of a story. When I was in Sri Lanka, I went on this meditation retreat, which was amazing and one of my favorite experiences my whole life. And after the retreat, I didn't have many plans. And one of my friends, she told me that there was this really nice, cool restaurant that I should go visit. And I was like, cool, okay, I'll go check it out. So I took my backpack and left the meditation retreat and took off to this restaurant, which was a couple hours away in a town that I had already been familiar with. And after getting to this restaurant, I sat down at the table and this family greeted me and they gave me the menu. It was a family owned restaurant. And they said, where are you going to stay tonight? And I was like, I don't have a place yet. I'm not really sure. I'm looking around. And they were like, well, just stay with us. Just stay with me and my family. And I was like, oh my God. I just like in my mind, I was like, Kayla, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you should do this. Is it safe? Is it not? Are you gonna be okay? It's gonna be so uncomfortable. Like all of this fear, right? It's like have an open mind. Have an open mind. Just do it. Every time you do something uncomfortable, it always leads to a good place. Just do it. So I said, okay, sure. And they brought me up this like tiny dirt hill up to their house. And they actually, it was a family of five, three young boys and then the mom and dad. And so they moved the boys into the bedroom with the mom and dad to give me the spare bedroom for the night. And in the morning we woke up at 4 a.m. and we went hiking up the mountains in Sri Lanka and watched the sunrise. And after that, they taught me how to cook Sri Lankan food in their kitchen, in their restaurant. And they invited me to meet their entire village of people. And like they were teaching me the Sri Lankan words. And like, if we don't walk in with an open mind, these types of things will never happen, right? We do have to be safe. We do have to be cautious. But we also have to listen to our heart and be like, is this a situation that I think is going to be okay or not? And so that's number one, walk in with an open mind. And number two is that we have to walk in with love and kindness so that love and kindness can greet us back. Because I think a lot of times, if we're kind of going as a tourist somewhere, we forget to do that. And we forget to respect the local culture and the local customs, and we're just kind of like wanting things our way. But when we walk in with love and kindness, we can also be greeted in the same way. And, things will open up that possibilities will open up that never were a possibility if we weren't to come in with an open heart and an open mind.
Awesome. I love the story about you in Sri Lanka. And it reminds me of the travel that my wife and we went to Bali, and we were in Ubud. And our cab driver, he's like, it was maybe 10 or 11 at night. And he's like, Before I drop you off at the hotel or where you're staying at the resort, can I bring you to my house? Right? And my wife and I are like, what the heck? Right? Like, what are you like? Is he gonna rob us, or what is he gonna do? And mind you, this is maybe like the second time we requested a ride from this cab driver, and he's like, I just really want you to come to my home, and I just want to show you. And so he brought us, and it was this little dark alley, and he's like reversing into it, and we're just like, oh no, like like there's guys
Yeah,
gonna be
my
with the
life.
machetes and whatnot. But he brought us to the house, and like in Bali, it's like they're kind of like mini castles or like fortresses. Like that's the way that I picture it, right? There's like there's a stone wall, and then there's all these mini houses. And the really cool thing about it is like the whole family lives there. So like you have all these generations in one little compound, and it's been there generationally. So that was a really cool thing. But like he's serving us drinks, he's serving us food, he's introducing us to his family, and we're like, okay, like cool. Like we thought we were gonna get like murdered or like kidnapped or whatever it is. But just having that open heart and coming with the kindness, they really show it, especially for people that they don't get to see that every day. They want you to experience it. So that's the reason why they even open up to be like, here, they didn't even know us. And he's just like, just come in, let us serve you. Let us show you what hospitality looks like from a different country. So totally agree. And, the loving kindness, it's huge. Kind of reminds me of, I was listening to an interview with Joe Gabbia, one of the co-founders of Airbnb. And one of the things like he brought up was, we're like, weren't you gonna have a lot of fear about like places getting trashed, by having like guests in your home? And he's like, yeah, that was one of the first concerns I had with Airbnb. But what we realized, the human behavior, like the human emotion, is like as soon as you go into someone else's home, you respect their home more. You treat it as your own home. You respect it for some odd reason. It's like us going into, um, you know, into someone's restaurant or someone's place of service. Like we will put on a different hat or put on different glasses to really come from a place of, just respect in many ways, especially if it's someone else's home. So I completely agree. Be open, lean into uncertainty and loving kindness. Great shares. Um,
Great
I,
share from you. I love hearing that story. That's awesome. These are the little things that happen when we travel, and it's just like, wow, that was so cool. Like that might have been the coolest part. Like, you can stay in the nicest of places, and it's just like you get this one little local experience, and you're like, wow, man, that was so kind of them to invite me, and so I could actually see how they live. Because, like, I can only speak for Americans, but we live in a very certain way, and we don't know how other people live. And through traveling, like I remember when I went to Rwanda and I made a local friend. He was like helping with the study abroad group, and he invited some of us to his house. And I remember going to his house for the first time, and it was just this like little tiny little shack. And the outhouse, it was like he didn't have a bathroom or any running water at all, and it was like there was this outhouse with like cockroaches running all around it, and like his bed was just like on the floor, and it was just so small. There wasn't a kitchen. There was just like a tiny little stove, and I was like, wow, he lives like this, and he was like one of the happiest people I ever met. And those are the things where you're like, wow, I don't need all of this stuff to be happy. And these are kind of like, this is why I believe so much in travel, because it breaks our mindset in so many things that we had believed before. Like before I started traveling, I just had like a bunch of clothes and a bunch of stuff. But then like through traveling, I'm like, oh wow, like I don't need anything. I just live out of a backpack. Like that's all I need. I don't need a lot. And like my friend in Rwanda who lives in a shack, he doesn't need a lot to be happy. So I definitely don't need a lot to be happy. And, it's just one example of the many things that break our mindsets, break certain mindsets that we build. And it's not our fault that we have these things that we believe, but in order to break them, we have to go see how other people live. We have to go experience other things.
100%. And like the thing that really hits home is like, what kind of work do you have to do before traveling? Like, we spoke about some of the strategies in terms of being open and showing up with loving kindness, but like, there's so many experiences that we go through that on the adventure of traveling. Um, what are some of the breakthroughs, or what are some of the limiting beliefs maybe that you've had uh, while living abroad?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd just love to hear a bit more about that.
So this brings me to like, there's an external journey of traveling the world and going seeing, but that's never going to resolve what's in our hearts. And we have to dive inside of ourselves to actually resolve those things. And during my journey, I told you all where I was initially. Before all these adventures, I was broken. I was broken in so many ways. I had so many bad experiences, and I hadn't really experienced like love from like my family or from any romantic partner or from myself and then not only that, but just like it just was coming from a broken place. So I decided to start traveling, right? Travel, 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 going all around the world. And still, I remember after 3 years of traveling and going all different places and then landing in Sri Lanka. And I remember getting to my Airbnb and I sat down and I was like, I still am not happy. How am I still not happy? What? And I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that I still wasn't happy after traveling all around. And that's when the internal journey actually began. Well, that's not true because the internal journey was happening, but I wasn't paying attention to it. So, what I recommend is like if you haven't started traveling yet, work on your internal journey because that's going to make your travels so much better. They're already going to be amazing. But if you're feeling in a place of like brokenness right now, start working on those things right away because the more fulfilled in your heart you are when you actually go and travel, exponentially your experiences are going to be even that much better. So
Mm, totally true. It brings me up to a story that you shared, and I'd love for you to share with the community, of your mom. And it kind of goes into this, like it's the external experience and the internal experience. Like, I'd love for you to share that story because like I thought it was really cool, like because like you were able to help your mother break through some of these barriers and really get live the life that she loves now. And if you would
yeah,
just share that, I'd love the community to hear this.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Thomas. That's a great example. So, my mom, I believe that I got a lot of my adventurous spirit from my mom because we used to go on road trips when we were younger and stuff. But my mom was a very, very, very broken inside. Uh, Mental disorders, eating disorders. She's been on her deathbed many, many times. Uh, we don't know how she survives it, but we're just super glad she does every time. And she's just got this strength within her that just like isn't ready to let go because she knows there's more. And she's been fighting that mental illness and eating disorders and all of that her whole life. And, at a certain point, I had to say, I have to get away from this. I have to get away from this environment where I can't stay home and try and take care of my mom forever. So that's kind of why I broke free. And I was like, well, I'm going to live my life and I'm going to trust that my mom is going to live hers and whatever result that is, it is. And years and years later, actually just in 2020, she had, she always goes through her cycles and her ways of recovering and then falling back and all of that. But then in 2020, we had been having many conversations about my travels, and I had told her kind of like my minimalistic way of living and how I just kind of go wherever and fly around the world wherever I want to go. And she was in a bad relationship that was really toxic for her, and so she decided, okay, I'm going to get out of this relationship. I'm going to buy a trailer. So she bought a trailer. She packed up her stuff, and um, she stopped her lease on her apartment, and then she went and she started going all around the world, or all around the US in her trailer. And now she messages me like all the time, just sending me like little video clips of her like hiking in the mountains. And I think this points out something important, and like a lot of the people who decide to travel, really, like, you should try and go on the internal journey first, but the traveling might be the guide to help you get back to the internal journey. Because my mom had tried to go on her internal journey for a really long time and it never worked. Why? Because she was always trapped by things in her environment. She would always get trapped by things bombarding her from her environment. So she was able to get out of that and get into nature and get away and just re-find herself again. And it's funny, like we talked on Mother's Day, and we have all these conversations about her going on her internal journey, and she's asking me all these questions like, how do I find self-love, and like how do I, all of these things about her diving in. And I am just like really glad that she was able to get away from what was trapping her and get into nature and get into something that was going to heal her. And that's why I say that I think that travel is the way to heal ourselves and the way to heal our world, because through travel we eventually start going on this internal journey, right? We all do it at a different time. So then we heal ourselves. And once we ourselves are healed, then we can share that love and we can share that with other people freely, number one. And number two, we understand how more about the world once we get out there and see it. So then maybe you go meet some family in Thailand, and then you see how they live and you learn about trash, and then you like end up doing some trash project or something. We like are able to expand and see the problems of other people in the world and how they're compared to ours. And I don't think that, you know, everyone has different issues. Like my parents, they both struggled. They were very successful people at one point in their lives, but they always struggled with mental health and mental illness. Well, that can be just as bad as living in a poor community where you're trying to find, like food and a house to live in. Mental health can be just as bad. I think all of us have different problems in life, and we all come to different ways of solving those problems. But travel helps us kind of open up our minds to see what's out there.
100%. Getting out of the environment, seeing what's out there, seeing how other people live. It definitely gives you a new perspective, a different, value system, I would say, to just appreciate just a bit more of what you have, and the luxuries and some of the conveniences, especially living here in the US, in the States. um, you know I remember even traveling to Japan one time. Like I spent a month traveling the world, and I brought like 6 different suitcases because I was hitting all different climates. Right? And I'm just like, what am I doing? And I highly recommend not doing that, because you're jet lagged the whole entire month, and it is pretty tough to hit all those time zones and get used to your body. But that experience, it just showed me that, yeah, getting outside the environment, and experiencing different paces of life,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And there's so many learnings from there. I'd love to just ask, we were traveling at a different point in time, right? And then
Yeah.
2020 hits, and then we get this pandemic, and it's not just like one particular place in the world, it's the whole world shuts down. And we're getting clearances, we're starting to get back into travel, right? I just love to hear, what are your thoughts on post-pandemic traveling?
Yeah, well, this is a very exciting topic. As I was traveling in many different ways. I was doing some touristy things and I was doing some more local activities. And I kind of started to consider, like, is tourism actually healthy for places? Because I would like go to these little towns, and I'd hear about how like tourism transformed the town, and like, okay, that could be good or bad. Like it can go both ways, right? But it can also really, interrupt the lives of the local people in a lot of ways, especially when us as tourists aren't really like respective of the res, respected of the local culture. And so I believe that in post pandemic traveling, there's a couple of things that are happening, right? Number one, people are really gonna like have this desire to go flock to like these touristy monuments. You know what I mean? So think about like the Eiffel Tower. I mean, when we think about crowds, a lot of us aren't really like excited to be in a crowd anymore. Some people still will be, and that's fine. But other people are gonna like want to be more off the beaten path, and they're gonna want to kind of have more of the local experience, whereas maybe they wouldn't have thought about that before. And I think a lot of people want to have the local experience. They just don't know how to get there. They don't know how to be part of it. You know what I mean? Because like, how do we learn what to do? We go read on blogs and we read about and we see pictures about the coolest things, and then we just go there, right? But anyways, just like about crowds and stuff. So people aren't going to want to be as in crowds as much. Number two, we are in the middle of a remote work revolution. I was just reading about it this morning and keeping track of all of these things that's going on. And like all of these companies are turning remote, and we have more access than ever before to go and live. And I mean, live, like go for a month. So you go to Japan and then you just bring your computer, you pack up and you go. And then you go on the weekends and on the, in the evenings, you can go exploring. But you just stay in an Airbnb for a whole month, and then like you just have your little adventures. And that's just one more way that we can go break out from what we know and go explore and go have more joy and exploration in our lives. And so remote work revolution, people not really wanting to be as much a part of crowds anymore, and really trying to go more off the beaten path. Those are the two main changes that I think that we're really going to see.
And like, in terms of like travel time, I know like for the US, right? We had like certain PTOs, we had like 14 days off, right? For like the whole year. Like, how do you see vacationing, or how do you see just traveling transforming post-pandemic?
Yeah, well, just imagine like, when you travel and then you go on like a remote work trip, it's different than a vacation. And we have to make sure that we see it that way, right? So um, when we go on a vacation, we get into a money deficit. We always get ourselves into a money deficit. I mean, it's basically unavoidable, right? Because we're not making any money. We're spending tons of money, and we come home and our bank account is way lower than when we left, right? It's inevitable. But with the remote working revolution and you being able to just, pop on down to Mexico. So say you want to just work from Mexico for a month, right? And so you pop on down, you take a cheap flight. Flights are super cheap from the US to Mexico if you're living in the US now, and then you get an Airbnb for a month, which is way cheaper than staying in any resort or anything. You get a huge discount when you do that. I always do that. And like, Mexico's cost of living is way lower than the US, right? Or come down to Ecuador, like my house. My beautiful 3-bedroom house costs $350 a month for rent. And so it's like there are places in the world like Colombia, Ecuador, all of South America, not all, but most places here, the cost of living's way lower. And then to rent a place out for a whole month, like $350 for the month here, or $350 for the day in a resort, right? And then you can go out and have your adventures and come back to your home base where you've got your laptop set up and you've got everything comfortable for you, right? So, so basically, like the idea is like in vacationing, we get ourselves into a money deficit. But in the remote work lifestyle, we actually are making money while we're away. And another tip for those watchers out there, like there's also this thing called trusted house sitters, and that's where you can actually go. I was on there the other day and I saw one for Costa Rica. So there's a family and they're looking for somebody to come stay in their house for the summer and watch their dog while they go and travel around. And you stay there for free. The only thing you have to do is watch their dog. And you can go stay in Costa Rica for, I don't know, like 2 months. And then, like go out and have adventures on your free time. And that's $0. That's zero rent. So you're making money while you're traveling, right? The only cost of that whole thing is your flight, your food, which you're already paying at home anyways. And then that would also be your adventures, which a lot of things people don't realize, but there's tons of adventures out there that are 100% free that you can actually do. So off my rant.
That's awesome. Now we know how to travel for free. Like I'll watch a dog,
And if you have a dog, you can find somebody to watch your dog while you go watch somebody else's. I did that with somebody before. I watched their dogs, and then I was in Colorado. I watched their dogs in this house sitting website, and then they went to London, and they were watching like a turtle. They were pet sitting a turtle in London. So I mean, it doesn't always have to be like a dog, which is a big responsibility. A turtle.
Right. Cool. What a gem. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. I'd love to ask, where can people find more information about you? Where can people learn about what you're up to and how you're helping, people work remotely in this remote working revolution? To do it in a way where, they are making money while traveling, and maybe they could even get, free housing by watching a pet. Like where can they find you and find more information about you?
Yeah, totally. So, number one, you're always welcome to reach out to me via Facebook, where you're probably watching this from right now. I'd love to talk with any of you. And like you can see, I'm really passionate about this. And I just want to help anybody that I can do this because you can see I believe in it so much. And number two, you can always visit my website, thetravelmovement.co. And you can visit those two places. And then also, you should definitely join our post-pandemic travel Facebook group, where we are talking to people from all around the world and talking to them about the on-the-ground situations. So we've talked to people in Mexico, Ireland, Thailand. We just did one on Taiwan. So we're doing interviews with people from all around the world, getting on-the-ground information about people who are there and what the situation's like and when things are going to be opening up. So that's a huge resource where you can keep track of things and get ready for your travel.
Awesome. One awesome hub to connect with the world and get real-time information. It's like your own Twitter for travel.
Yeah, exactly. Because that kind of goes back to my idea of like the news, and like the news not really like showing us the full picture because they're getting paid to show us whatever they want, right? And like fear, like bad stories, like terrible stories get the most news, right? So then we just like see all these bad stories of things happening all around the world. But really, like the world is such a safe place. I haven't really mentioned that, but like along my travels, I never had any problems. I actually had the opposite. Everyone embraced me with open arms, and like, they just take care of me. And I found mentors, and I found friends, and my boyfriend who's here from Ecuador. And, it's just people embrace you when you walk in with kindness and love and everything. So, but yeah, so getting all those on the ground stories and post-pandemic travel group, definitely join us.
Awesome. Definitely, we'll drop the links in the comments after the stream is done, with the Facebook group, with Kayla's page, as well as Kayla's website, the travelmovement.co. Right. So check her out when you get the moment. Just wanted to do, you dropped so many gems today. Be open, lean into uncertainty, go in with loving kindness, and that'll be reciprocated back. Many times it is there. It's just that you have to be open to receive it and give it, right? Shifting from the external experience to the internal experience. Sometimes you have to get outside of the environment to do it, right? And to really find yourself, and have the courage to really travel alone sometimes, or just go on an adventure regardless of age. Like your mom is
Yeah,
like traveling
regardless of age. Some of my clients, one of them is like 55 years old. Another one of them is like 25 years old. So age does not matter if you're watching this and you're thinking about age.
100%. It's it's a mindset, right? It's who we are on the inside with that age that we live on the inside. But the remote working revolution of making money while traveling, even finding cool places like getting free housing by watching a turtle or a dog or whatever it is,
Or a plant.
or a plant. And just thank you for dropping all these awesome gems for people that are looking to, itching to travel, itching to get out and really explore, maybe not only for work purposes, but maybe there's something inside, like maybe they are daydreaming, looking outside their window and wanting to see what life could be like. And awesome to have you as a guide to really help them along that journey and connect with you. This is what the community is about, to find really cool, coaches and niches to really serve. And I bet a lot of these coaches within this group, they want to go traveling. They want to know exactly what to do and how to do it. Definitely reach out to Kayla and do it.
Yeah, do it.
I'd love to leave a parting question, I guess. Like, if you were to do it all over again, right? So, you've had the 5-6 years of experience of just doing it full time. What are, say, 3 tips that you could give for someone that's looking to go off on an adventure for an extended period of time?
Yeah. So, number one, we talked about this a little bit before. This is like, you have to do this, okay? If you don't do this, it's going to be really painful throughout your travels. You have to think lightweight. We have to think to bring as few things as possible. And I know that can be really hard because we have usually, like, when we travel, we just bring like a big bag and we don't think too much about it, right? But the more lightweight that you travel, like, okay, I'm talking a carry on size and like a small backpack, or a carry on in a like briefcase, or me, I just do a big backpack and a small backpack. I'm not saying you have to be a backpacker, but I'm saying think about just taking a carry on, because when you bring less stuff, more adventure happens. And like way more possibilities when you have less stuff. Like I was giving this example before. When you think about traveling from say you go to Colombia and you want to go to Cartagena. So you have like a full giant big suitcase and a backpack. Okay, so if you want to travel around Colombia, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to do that with a big luggage, right? Because you can't move around easily. But if you just have something small, you could go all around the country, and you can, go on buses and planes and all these things. that make your adventure so much more exciting. And you can go into more remote places where you don't have to like lug heavy luggage around, right? We have to do that. Best example, I literally only live out of a backpack now. That's all I have in my for the past 5 years, but even 2 years, I haven't been back to the US since then, and I just have one backpack, and I'm totally fine. I don't need anything more. So we think we need a lot more than we. So we have to make that shift. Tip number one. Tip number two, use these ways of affordable travel. Use the house sitting, use the pet sitting. If you're young like me and you feel like it would be interesting, go stay in a hostel. They're so much cheaper. Rent out an Airbnb for a full month. Use these ways of affordable travel. Number three, always stay connected. Always make sure that you have Wi-Fi, unless you're going into a situation where you know it's for sure safe. But what I'm talking about is like, have internet when you get on the ground somewhere. When you land from the plane, have internet so you can just order an Uber instead of having to deal with taxis and have to barter with them and all that and have to deal with that hassle. No, just like have internet and get an Uber. And I teach my clients all of these things. These are the things that I teach my clients. And like, you could go travel without me and that would still be amazing, but there's things that will make this way easier for you, and you'll save time and you'll save heartache and fear and frustrations if you do these things right ahead of time, right?
Totally agree with you with the traveling light. Like I shared traveling the world around the world in a month, and I brought like all the clothes, right? Because I was going in all these different climates. And while I was in Europe, I had my backpack, I had the big suitcase, and then I had the carry-on, right? And I remember I was on a train going from Paris to Amsterdam, and my small luggage had it had like my laundry in it, basically, right? All my dirty clothes is in there. And while I was on the train, I was just like, as soon as I get off this train, I'm just gonna mail this back to the US because it no longer serves me. But the funny part is someone stole that bag off the train and stole my dirty laundry. Right? So like I'm just like, it's funny how you manifest. I'm just like, sure, like I didn't need it anyway, right? So like you kind of get what you wish for on those journeys. But it's a fun story to tell because you wouldn't have that if you weren't traveling. And just going through that experience. So definitely travel light, affordable travel, and Wi-Fi. Great tips, great tips. One last question, I guess, is you said traveling was for healing. And just love you to share a bit more about that mission. What do you want as just trying to find the words to frame this up. What is the mission with traveling?
Yeah, totally. Travel pushes us to do so many things that we would never, ever do before. Get out of our comfort zone. Number one, how often do we do that? Really? And it's so hard. But when you travel, you have to, no matter what. You're forced out of your comfort zone. That's number one. If we get out of our comfort zone, we start to see other things, see how the world works. We start to get a better mirror of who we are as a person, who we are as a culture. I learned a lot about Americans when I started traveling and noticing how we act in comparison to other people around the world. And we are exposed to things and ideas that we never, ever could have been exposed to before. I think about my experience, especially in Sri Lanka, on my meditation retreat. And also after that, meeting one of my greatest mentors of my entire life, who was like this spiritual person who helped me like discover the meaning of life. I will never meet him without traveling. And I will never know what Buddhists are like or what they believe without traveling. I could know from like the American perspective of people who are like Buddhist in America, but that's very different than like going to the actual country where like 90% of people are Buddhist and then like being a part of that culture. Um, when I think about being outside of my comfort zone, visiting my boyfriend's family and visiting this farm and not speaking, the language as much as like you'd like to, and not being able to communicate, and learning that words don't really matter as long as you just have a smile and a hug and love in your heart. And we discover these things when we travel. So that's about the self healing. And the world healing is, once we're healing ourselves, we can give so much back to the world than we ever could before.
Hmm.
And we understand and we have connections with people from all around the world. So, say you're like a successful business owner, and then you go traveling and you meet all these other people from around the world, amazing networking opportunities to do some really brilliant things around the world. It just fires me up thinking about it. And this is the way that I know, number one, it's going to heal ourselves. I've experienced it. My mom's experienced it. Many travelers along the way. You meet travelers and they have this lightness about them, and you're kind of like, wow, you're so free. Well, it wasn't a fast or easy journey.
Hmm.
And it took a lot of being out of the comfort zone, a lot of pushing to get here. And then the world healing, just connecting our world instead of dividing it, instead of putting up walls, instead of dividing each other by the color of our skin or where we come from or how much money we make or all these things that we believe that really divide us. No, we're all humans. We all just want love and joy in our lives. And when we can get closer to that, then we'll heal our world.
Awesome. Aligns with the mission that this group is about. It's about a rippling effect, going from powerlessness to courage, and really stepping into our own. So, Kayla, thank you so much for your gems today. Definitely, we'll drop the links below for her website, for her Facebook group, as well as just connecting through her to her through Facebook. We'll drop all those links in the comments after the stream is over. And I hope you enjoyed this one. This one was a fun one.
Yeah, Thomas, I had so much fun with you too. It's really nice. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for doing this and for bringing together all of us in this community. It's a great thing.
Awesome. And thank you. 100% heart travel.